Good morning and welcome to another episode of MSP Community Live, where we talk about all the most important conversations and some of the least important conversations happening in the MSP community. I'm Orsini, and joining me, as always, sometimes, most of the time, is Kyle Spooter with an amazing dude. Are you going to like Century 21? Are you going to be a real estate agent? What are we looking at here?
I feel the need to dress up. I mean, it's I get to hang with you.
Now I feel underdressed.
Well, I mean, that's for your audience to decide.
That's true. I mean, to be fair, you are a very prestigious person holding position in one of the largest communities in the MSP space. I think it's something like a MSP Geek, and there's some kind of conference coming up, something like that.
Yeah, it's just a little get together.
little get together, just 500, 600, 700 of our closest friends in Orlando. How are you feeling about that? It's 4 months away.
That's an interesting question, Ray, because this time last year, like literally like January 19th, 2023, we had yet to had a contract signed with the hotel. We had announced the conference, but we hadn't sold tickets. We haven't really put together a whole lot. So I don't know how to feel, because I don't know, like we have a contract signed. We've been planning. We started selling tickets in November for early bird. They're still available. And so it's like, I don't know how to feel right now, because I
get it. Yeah. You've accomplished more than we did last year, right? Like by this point, you're far more prepared than last year. Doesn't change that it's coming soon, and you feel like you should be stressed, maybe. Like, I know that's how I feel.
That's exactly how I feel. I feel like nothing is done yet. A lot has been done. So
yeah.
Thanks, Phil.
Whatchamacallit? Yeah, he's got you as the sequel for whatchamacallit. What was it? The Mask with Jim Carrey. I thought you looked like Alan Edwards a little bit, just a younger Alan Edwards from Eureka Process.
Eureka Process, yeah. I mean, I'll take that comparison. Very handsome fellow.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
I mean, I'll also take The Mask because I get to meet Jim Carrey, and I grew up in the 90s.
That's
so
true. And Cameron, I forget Cameron's last name.
Yes.
But MSP GeekCon, the 19th through the 21st, tickets are on sale right now. And this was last year. This was a fun picture of everybody last year. So, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to Cameron Diaz. Here to talk about the community and all the conversations. Have you seen anything? I'm completely unprepared, so I'm looking through it right now.
See, I knew I was going to be a guest on today because you asked nicely. And so I have a couple of things that I would like to talk about. From the MSP perspective.
I'm bringing that up right now. And this is why you're the guy in the suit. I mean, let's see here. What do we got? We have, let's share this tab. We have centralized security platform. You want to read it off for us?
Sure. A friend of mine runs an MSP. He approached me last year to see if I could create a project for him. Spoke to him and a few others in the business and showed interest. So I'm curious on feedback. And he came to our MSP of all places, Reddit, just in general, of all places, to ask for feedback, which is interesting.
Excuse me, sir. There will be
I said Reddit. It's not our MSP. It's just
I know exactly. No. I get anything you submit is with a grain of salt and fair warning.
Right.
So, okay.
He wants to build a security platform that has an EDR, DNS, hardening, and logs for $3 per user. My first thing is, there's already a lot of companies in the space that do everything he does, and none of them do individual things for $3 a user. So doing all of that in an effective platform that actually works.
Even Huntress would occupy most of that $3.
Yeah, like you can't do ED. There's no way you can do proper EDR unless you're touching. Like you can't. Like you have to source
So
Microsoft or someone like that, but you have to pay for that as a vendor. You can't just
I assume by DNS he means DNS filtering, right?
yeah.
Which that's not happening natively. Like the EDR stuff or the MDR, I would say
Yeah.
MDR or EDR, Huntress, and any vendor. I'm just using the stuff I use. Huntress and Microsoft Defender, you're under $3, but that doesn't accomplish DNS filtering.
Nope.
That doesn't accomplish SIM. You know what I mean? Like
Log storage in
log
general
storage
is
Yeah.
going to be because I don't know if anyone's looked at their event logs on their own computer lately, but that's a lot of space for event logs that Windows does.
I believe every Windows scammer in India has actually absolutely looked at your event logs. You know, and that's the thing. Okay, so let's talk, and we're talking here security costs. We're not talking tools. We're not talking RMM, PSA, blah, blah. Security costs. And I would argue this is still pretty basic, in my opinion. I'm going to extend hardening to include allow listing, right?
Yep.
There's tons of vendors that do that. You can do it natively in Windows. Requires a lot more configuration, but you can do it. Actually, okay, let's go back. If we said DNS filtering and used an open source tool, there are open source tools you can use for DNS filtering that would keep your costs down. It would raise your management costs, which I'm sure $3 a user is not looking at. But I will step back and say you can do DNS filtering without a paid product.
I'd argue you can do probably every single one of those without a paid product. I'm sure there's an open source tool for each, except for storage log. I mean, you got to pay for storage.
No, you can light up gray logs. Yeah, then your cost of storage, right? And yeah, I mean, you can just store that on USB drives. That's what we all do. No, I'm kidding.
Safe.
It's safe, but then I see this is still missing. So one of the big points I had last year in security was our SaaS apps, right? Shadow IT. It's so easy to sign up for a trial for something. You don't need admin permission. There's really not a good way to block that. So monitoring that stuff, that to me is a bigger security concern than saving your logs. You know what I mean? Like, and the reason I say that, I know I'm now going to get every security person in the channel yelling at me. I would say that because your EDR is looking through the logs in addition to other stuff and has its own logs. Your DNS filter will have its own logs. But as they're doing stuff in real time and reporting to your RMM, the historical logs have less value at that point.
You can see they went to the website and DNS, but you don't know that they signed up for anything, right? Or have an account now.
Right. Exactly. So that's I use John Hardensing, Avik, SaaS Management, I think is a current name. But there's options. There's a ton of options out there. It's not we're not arguing one vendor versus another. But I just want to point out that's missed from here, and I think that's far more important to me than worrying about and you don't see email filtering either, right? Like I'm more worried about email filtering than I am about DNS filtering. Yeah.
I also have concerns with taking an open source product, merging 3 open source projects, or just all like if as a business, right, as as a company, as someone who buys products from other businesses, if they took all open source products and just smashed them together to form their product, I have concerns about that, because at that point they're not experts in that section. They just took someone else's expertise and added it into another person's expertise. Like, they're good at merging things, cool, but what happens when that has a bug? Are you going to fix it? Like, you don't have the expertise in that, in DNS filtering. You have to either learn it, which is going to take time, and then your product has issues. Like, there's a lot of like overhead and stuff that's not calculated or like assumed, right? Because there's a lot of like, when we think of a Huntress or of a ConnectWise or Kaseya or whatever, we don't look at them as individual developers who have put products together, right?
Right.
We see them as big conglomerates with a bunch of people who we may or may not like, depending on the time of day. And the expertise that comes with putting together this package, so to speak, they may have started at open source, but they've already gone through the problems of dealing with they're finding an expert, and they may have hired an expert at that point, right? Because they can now afford it because they've worked to it. And I don't know that I'd trust my MSP to something
and that's
like
kind of my point, right? Like, I know I can do, like you said, I can do all of these things open source. I can't manage them, keep them up, or improve them for cheaper than what a vendor is doing, generally speaking. Like you said, the vendors are looking at it as business. They're hiring a certain class of employees, whether that's developers, whether that's security analysts, whatever. Um, and even if they're going for the cheapest thing possible, they still have to make their product usable and productive, right? Like they still have to make it where something they can sell, and is not going to get them torn apart on Geek or Reddit or anywhere else, mostly. So I don't know most MSPs that can say that, like you're saying. That's no different than the business thing, right? Like I've always said, the difference between a vendor and most MSPs is, and I'll count myself in that, most MSPs, we started doing this because we were good at it. We saw an opportunity to have fun and make money, and so we did it. There's not a lot of MSPs that started off with a business plan. Most vendors, most established vendors at last, start off with a business plan. And I think there's something to be learned there. You know what I mean?
Because usually it takes additional capital to put together a vendor. And that's going to require going to banks, and banks aren't just going to give you money because I got a good idea. You want to hear
it? I've tried that. It didn't work. It didn't.
Go ask your developer friends. Hey, I have an app idea. I bet I can make $1 bajillion. You want to help me out?
Most of them be like, yeah, let's go. Do it for equity. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's a Bitcoin game.
Yes, I am gonna start paying my employees.
Pokemon. It's Pokemon, but
coin.
for MSPs.
That's I think we just designed the next conference shirt right there. Oh no, wait, actually I think Finn has a Pokemon one. Oh. Speaking of conferences, that's one of the things I wanted to cover besides MSP GeekCon, obviously, but conference season is starting. You and I have both talked to MSPs about why they should attend any conference, what conferences they should attend. I was actually listening to something, Marvin B's podcast, this week, and he spoke to Kelsey Blankenship. I always forget her second name, Lackland, I think, over at CyberQP, and she was talking about how she attends conferences, and she goes into it with a plan of what she's going to do, what she needs to accomplish. It's a work thing, right? So while she'll do, I'm paraphrasing, and go watch the Marvin B podcast. Excellent. It's on my regular rotation. But while she's going to this stuff, she's usually going to bed earlier than maybe you or I have stayed up till, or you know what I mean? Because she's got to be up earlier. And so I think that maybe we should talk a little bit about like how to best extract value from conferences, and maybe use that as the light that we shine on the conferences to determine which conferences we should attend, right? Because you're in the position where you can't. I think Henry Tim's probably the only human on the planet that goes to every single conference ever. The rest of us mortals, we have to pick and choose. So how do you pick and choose what conferences you go to besides MSP GeekCon, which is obvious?
That's a good question. And I think there's two sides to it, right? You have the vendor sponsor side, and you have the attendee, generally an MSP consultant side.
Yeah.
And the vendor side, I can easily see your position in said company who's sponsoring affects what you could do. For instance, as the CEO of OIT and the owner of OIT, you can have someone else go to bed and get up early and run the booth, right?
Yeah. Keep in mind, I have to pay somebody else to do those things.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Like it's not free. So, but as an MSP, it's tough because it also depends on your position in said company and your goals. Conferences offer a lot of value in a lot of different areas. And if you go in and have your expectations set on a specific thing, you could end up being disappointed based on the information you have. And as someone who's planned a conference, I have a much more appreciation for those who put them together. Please ignore my camera glitching.
Yeah, it's fine. When I'm home, my camera glitches all the time.
So I can see it as but it's when I evaluate what conference I'm going to go to, I evaluate the agenda. which can be difficult because a lot of time planning a conference, like for instance, MSP GeekCon hasn't closed our call for speakers yet.
Right.
So I can't put.
When is the closing date for that? Because that's a good.
That is, it ends January 31st, same day early bird ends.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
So it is. So it's hard for us to say, you know, we have talks come to, because we haven't picked them yet. We do have something that not other vendors really have, or conferences have, and that's our core sessions, which we have. We have their overall conversation, what they're going to talk about and what they speak about, and then we have the individuals. We've selected them. We've gone to them and say, hey, you want to talk about this? So that we have, and we can kind of pitch, but generally speaking, the farther out when people are planning these things, it's hard to get that because not all of the submissions have been closed. So once they are closed and you start looking at the agenda to plan what talks you may want to go to, it becomes a little bit more of an interesting dichotomy, because some conferences sell speaking slots to vendors, which is a very common practice.
Let's say most. It's not all, but most.
Yep. And
not MSP GeekCon.
MSP GeekCon does not, despite the repeated attempts at people trying to get me to sell them one.
I'm hoping you'll cave it. No, I'm kidding.
So it is. You have to kind of do some due diligence on what you're reading. It may not be something that's relevant to you. It may the topic title may be generic to get you to come to the conference or to come to that agenda. Oh, look, my camera froze. I saw it all happen all in real time. It was great. It's beautiful. But it's
all right. We're getting the voice, and the voice of Spooner is so much more important.
I love it. The freeze frame, though.
Yeah, right. It's always in the worst possible.
You have to do some due diligence on the speaker and the topics that they're covering to make sure that you understand what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And that honestly, it's just restarting, and I keep thumping it.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. So looking at it's not like, okay, so I was going to say, it's not like the agendas call out the paid sessions versus free sessions.
Correct.
I will say that some conferences are getting better at consolidating them, still offering the paid speaking, but those are identified and in a separate block from the learning sessions. And I appreciate that. I think that's a best of both worlds. Give the sponsors the opportunity to do what they want to do, but the MSPs can completely ignore it, and they're not losing education time because of it. But as an MSP, where you have employees, you have superiors, where you either have to justify why you can go to a conference. So you and I have had these conversations before where you're like, I can only go to this one. I can only go to this one. Or if your staff goes to conferences, I imagine you look at the agendas to justify, or maybe you and I have been around long enough where we know better, but normally we look at the agendas to see, here are the sessions. Can the employee obtain value from those sessions? And that becomes the justification for sending them. Part of the justification. There's other values, or there's another value in it. But how do you determine which of those sound like sales pitches, which of those actually have meaningful value when reviewing for like what you'll attend or what you'll send somebody else to attend?
Well, let's split off from that a little bit. Some conferences are dedicated to specific individuals, like IT Nation's kind of geared towards the more IT Nation Connect is geared towards more business owners. IT Secure is geared more towards security. You wouldn't go to in a bigger sized MSP with split roles and responsibilities. You wouldn't send your business owner who's responsible for the business to a security conference, right? That's not going to provide a lot of benefit aside from maybe educating on security stuff, but it's not going to give you what you really want.
Right.
And there's a lot of speakers who are in this for I don't want to say clout because that's not the right word, but the personal brand.
There's a value to speaking on stage. I absolutely am strategic about when I do it. I'm not going to lie about it. Like, there's value to it because you're also many times you're giving up your time, even if not all conferences will pay flight, hotel, logistics per diem for having you out, right? Besides that, you're missing work. Some do, some absolutely do, but on the speaker side, there also has got to be a reason to go, right? Like, so, and I will tell you that bar is far, at least when I'm speaking, it's far higher for me. When I'm sponsoring something, it's a little different, but if it's something I'm not, like I'm going to Enterprise Connect next in a few weeks, like if I'm not sponsoring something, I really take a harder look at it because now it's a conference where I'm only participating for an hour, for 2 hours. You get what I'm saying? So it's a higher cost per time invested. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah. To answer your question though, when I evaluate agendas, the first thing I look for is the title. Yeah. That's going to generally determine if it's for me or not. So if it says cybersecurity, I'm generally already in the no area because I'm not. That's not my area of expertise. But if it's like how to pitch cybersecurity or how to adapt cybersecurity into your business and understand it, then I might be going to it because that's more towards what I'm working in nowadays. I think, I'm more towards the business side than the actual work side. But if it's how to take your SOC to the next level, I'm probably going to skip that one. But if
it's right, boom, ITNS, more interesting, right? Or RSA or Black Hat.
Or it may be something that's you can generally spot the paid for sessions by the company.
Like I'm looking here at so channel program Henry Tim, the Tech Degenerates. They're working on an event calendar. I don't want to share it yet because it's still in process, but go join the Tech Degenerates Discord. We'll put a link on here, or if Henry's on here, you can put it. But this is the channel program event calendar just for people watching this. And I say this because thank you for joining. I don't want to butcher your name. But we were having this exact conversation in the Hoodoo Discord in MRU about conferences. And I don't think people realize exactly how many events.
So many.
It's insane. And I put the link in chat if anybody wants to go see this. And you can filter it by, event type, online, in person, blah, blah. But yeah, this is an insane amount. And so so like lunch and learn with Barracuda MSP, you can almost be guaranteed there is a component of sales in there, right? Like that pops out to me. But
I would honestly say that every event there's a component to sales. Even ours has a sales component in it. But most of them aren't always upfront with it.
Well, and then there's a component of it too where I would argue, where I would say, so like there's one here from Acronis, your engineer-led guide to Acronis cybersecurity, how to use Acronis for. Now, I get if you're not using Acronis, that could be a sales thing, but if you are using Acronis, that's an educational thing. It's the same event, same cost on their end, same same speech on their end. So it comes down to what your personal value is, and that's kind of what I'm getting to. I think a lot of us, and this is something Kelsey had said, it's a lot of the MSPs, business owners, sometimes we look at a conference as a way to like go hang out with our friends, go network, go whatever, and that absolutely happens. Anybody who's hung out with either you or me or both, they know. But beyond that, it doesn't change. I think just like having a business plan going to MSP, I think you should have, any MSP going should have a plan going to a conference, right? And plan your time for fun, plan your time for BS. But I think you should go in knowing what you're trying to get out of that conference before you step foot onto the plane.
Oh yeah, you should absolutely have some type of internal agenda. You're paying a lot of money to go, and networking may be that agenda. building your personal network where you
Yep.
there. Like I was at IT Nation, and I was there as MSP Geek, not my MSP. So my agenda was different. My agenda was to network,
Yep.
to meet people, to have conversations, to help anyone I could. And the problem was, like, I didn't feel like I fulfilled my agenda because there was a bunch of people that I didn't get a chance to talk to. Which again, like, it goes back to making sure that you follow what you can and try to do your best. And I talk to a lot of people. So, you just got to make sure that you have some type of initial plan to get your ROI out of it, because every event you should have an ROI. Even
100%.
even sponsors have an ROI that they want to make sure to hit.
Which isn't always money. There's, you know what I mean? Like, we count number of existing partners we've talked to, or yes, new leads, like, but it's not always closed deals. It's, how many new contacts we made, or I specifically go for business conversations and strategic relationships. That's my ROI, right? Like, and also hanging out with friends. Like, that is a ROI. We don't get to see each other in person very often.
Right.
So I absolutely use that as a component, but I think there's value to that. How many conversations have you and I, or you and Mendy, or Slagle, or any of us, like, sometimes we come up with some really good shit while we're, sitting having a drink and having some food.
Yeah,
So there's value
absolutely.
to it. All right, let's get to your favorite part. I know this is where you live by, Reddit, RMSP.
Absolutely.
So Google Workspace sucks ass. I'm currently going through a current argument with Google right now because I can't get access to my reseller account, so I'm not going to argue that. This is an MSP dispatch thing, Tuesdays and Fridays, actually just before this. Are any of these jumping out to you? I like the Copilot thing, if we want to talk about that real quick.
Sure.
It's cool. Are you guys selling it to your clients?
So no. Copilot there's two Copilots. I don't know if you knew this, or I don't know if your audience knows this.
There's several.
There's
you counting GitHub?
Two main ones. GitHub's Copilot, which Microsoft owns GitHub, so which makes it even more confusing.
Yeah.
So the fact that GitHub has a Copilot for programming, and now Microsoft's selling not programming Copilot to allowing you to sell it out, but I don't. I like AI. Don't get me wrong. But the AI that exists is an LLM. And most people are taking LLMs and associating that with machine learning and real artificial intelligence. And that is just not true.
Yeah.
And there are businesses constantly being spun up around AI and LLMs. And it's not as good as people make it out to be. It's a fad at this point. It's not of it. Like, it's absolutely great in specific areas. Marketing, love it.
Oh, for sure. I like even stuff like if you go to ChatGPT or any, I prefer Claude AI at this point. Bing's actually gotten better since it stopped harassing people.
Yeah.
So, but like I'll go to, I'm going to do this. Give me a project plan. These are my goals, right? And sometimes it does a really good job of breaking stuff down like that, of things you may have missed. I find AI to be very good at filling in the blanks, but not going from nothing to a fully fleshed out idea. I think that's a mistake, and I think I agree with you. That's exactly how it's used sometimes. Did you know that Notepad is getting AI? It's getting Copilot.
Oh God.
Yeah, so we covered that on Tuesday's MSP Dispatch, every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, just before MSP Community Live on Friday. But we did just cover that. And Notepad's getting Copilot. Notepad doesn't have bold, italicized, or strike through, but it has Copilot. That to me seems ridiculous. But you were saying there's multiple Copilots. Is there value for clients today with Copilot specifically?
Depends on the use case.
Okay.
And that's kind of everything it depends on. Like building processes and procedures, asking questions, learning more about the industry. Sure. Having it actually do work at this point is very limited in its capability. Generating marketing content's great. I'd argue, I mean, obviously a true marketing content creation person is going to be like, but it's horrible. True. But as someone who doesn't do marketing, it's easy for me to be like, all right, write me this. That sounds okay. Right. So there are things like that, and asking legal questions, and getting a better understanding of something. I use it as a better search tool.
Yeah, I use it for proofreading sometimes. I use it for getting stuff like I use it for ideation and fleshing stuff out, right? Not final product, not initial idea, but somewhere in the middle of what does this look like, and that works really well. I have not used Copilot in Office yet. I'm told Teams Premium with Copilot is actually really amazing.
For what?
I don't know. So as a Firefly's replacement or an Otter AI replacement,
that works.
Because anybody, yeah. So, and that to me is an excellent use of AI. That is, so for those of you that don't know, there's Otter AI chat, there's Fireflies. There's actually several of these things, but I looked at Five. I ended up on Fireflies. I know Otter's very popular too. Joins your meetings. Anybody who's been in a meeting and seen like that one face that doesn't have, or that one screen doesn't have any names or a picture, they're taking the recording of the call, digesting it, pulling all the text out of it, turning it into, and then processing it through whatever things you want. Most of these things have pre-built, these are the topics, this was a sentiment, these were the highlights. But you can do cool stuff like, as you're talking, this thing, you're right, the last 2 minutes, let's make that a to-do. And Fireflies will sit there and make a to-do separate section that'll have whatever you guys were talking about, understand the context, paraphrase it, and put it as a to-do item. That's amazing. And that's super helpful as somebody who's promised a lot of things on a call and completely forgotten after, which is why my EA has a job. You know what I mean? Like that's really amazing. And I love that. That is a phenomenal use of AI. Fireflies is also $20 a user, and that gets very expensive. So across an organization. So when you see stuff like Teams having that kind of functionality, which again, I need to test, but it's cool that it has it. That becomes something that has more value to me because Teams has other benefits, single platform, single pane of glass, the other benefits of using Teams, SharePoint, and all the other fun stuff. Similarly, Slagle and I were talking, and I think this is going to, we both think that this is going to become something that will be included into like business premium at some point after they raise the prices. That's my biggest concern with AI. It's vendors throwing AI into everything and then realizing there's a significant cost to support it, especially with all these different, like, let's call it Microsofting, where you create 17 iterations of the same thing, give it different names, different teams, and then put it in 17 different products, and some of them die. That's my concern, right? That's they're going to start changing pricing or whatever based on this nonsense. That may be valuable, maybe not be valuable. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like I said, it all depends. I haven't seen, there's been very few services that I have seen that I'm excited about as far as AI goes. It can be like, that doesn't already, like ChatGPT, like it's basically just a front end for ChatGPT. And at that point, I'm just kind of like, I'll just use ChatGPT. So there's I absolutely think AI is going to, when it officially becomes better, like documentation. If I can inject my documentation into an AI system and have it, give me results, and the, additional LLM features, like, hey, this is broken. What's the setting I need to put it in for this firewall? And it gives me the details to log into the firewall, like stuff like that, as well as how to potentially fix it. That is amazing. But then you look at who updates the documentation, right?
Yeah, and so like stuff like that. Okay, so I forgot who did it. Well, let's give credit where credit's due. Luke Whitelock, Kevin Tellar, and many others years ago created scripts for automatically documenting stuff in
Mhm.
whatever platform, right? IT Glue, Hoodoo, whatever. And a lot of that's still used today, honestly.
Mhm.
So that automatic ingestion of information, manipulation, and then putting it into whatever platform, that to me is fantastic. That is an excellent use of, maybe not AI, but that's an excellent use of computational power, right? Now,
Yeah.
if you use AI into it and say, okay, well, we know that every UPS, the battery should last about a year, 2 years, whatever. So we're on a 2 or 3 year refresh cycle for the or a yearly refresh cycle for the batteries, a 5 year refresh cycle for the cases. You can tell AI that and then say, when you identify something as a UPS, so it's an Eaton, an APC, or whatever as a UPS, make sure we automatically add a task for recurring refreshes. And if
Mhm.
a tech doesn't have to do that, dude, how much better would your life be if all proactive tasks were generated by AI? Like,
Yeah. That's the thing that people are missing. It's they
yes,
think LLM, which again, it's just a language model. It's
yeah,
not artificial intelligence. It's just a smart version of giving you language. Um, they assume that it does all these cool things, and while ChatGPT does have a lot of cool features, you still need to make it smart. And
yeah.
try pay for, if you pay for the big version of GPT, the premium version, and you try to get it to do anything fancy like ingest logs and have it parse those, like it's really bad.
Yeah.
It's not
Well,
good.
and I think Mendy was the one that pointed out to me. It was Mendy you pointed out to me like the character limitation of posts you can send to ChatGPT.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and then I think I remember Mendy complaining about, for some things it doesn't remember context, so you have to send back the response and what you want done additionally to the response, something like that. It was very convoluted.
So
Um,
for those who don't know how ChatGPT operates, when you start a conversation, it creates basically an AI or an API grouping to the conversation. And if you're, I, I'm, I don't know if this is how the website works, but I'm going to assume it does, just because of for fun. But
yeah,
when you
no,
start that,
the website definitely has character limitations. Now,
um,
whether this is occurring that you're talking about is the cause of that, I don't know.
so
But
when you send a hey, help me with this thing, ChatGPT, it replies back. When you say, okay, what about this? The previous discussion has to get sent back via the API, which means you are sending back months worth of conversations potentially to this AI so it can remember what it said to you. And then it doesn't properly digest it or ingest it. And you like, I mean, I've had like stuff that it's recommended to me, and I've had long standing conversations. And yeah, so when you ask it about knowledge base expansion, it will send it back to you. It'll send back, you're sending this full conversation to it again
right, and
to quote
so,
unquote keep the
which is
context.
crazy, which is crazy. That's like, and so those limitations. Now, okay, this is iteration. It's not iteration one. It's, let's call it iteration one in the
Yeah.
context of MSPs, right? This is the most popular. This is the Pampers of AI for us. This is the name brand of AI for us. Um, but there's Azure has these services. GCS, AWS has these services. You can absolutely build your own LLM. Hell, Jimmy Hatzel just launched a company based on
Yeah.
providing AI services for MSPs. Uh, so, Hats AI. So, and in those contexts, I think they do actually do a better job of maintaining the context, maintaining information, and processing. Um, I think this just may be a construct of the Globe is using it versus Kyle Spooner for IntelliComp, or
Mm-hmm.
Ray Orsini for OIT or whatever. Um, and that's where I think MSPs are kind of moved towards. But this is kind of like big data analytics, right? Like, big data analytics is a thing, and I think MSPs are getting better and better and better at it. They're not in the big data analytics yet, but MSPs are definitely getting better at dashboards, KPIs, metrics, for stuff beyond just patching, right? Like MSPs are getting better at that. So I would hope MSPs will start creating subject matter experts, like we have automation experts, start creating AI subject matter experts of how to implement that for MSPs. Henry says, how about all the free training data Microsoft is getting out of people rushing to dump their data into Copilot? That is my biggest concern with AI. I've rallied about that a million times.
I am going to say that doesn't matter. Because they have already dumped their data into ChatGPT, which they basically own.
No, remember they have one board on top of the other board and all that crap. Oh, that was such a mess last year. Whatchamacallit, I'm not even sure who the CEO is at this point. Yes, and Copilot is a challenge, but that's one of the things I talk to people about where I agree with you. People are not using ChatGPT responsibly. They're not using AI responsibly in many, many, many cases. Even MSPs that I talk to, sometimes I'm like, are you out of your mind? You gave it a freaking API token like to connect to something? Like, are you crazy? So stuff like that, or sending logs with passwords in them, things like that. But Azure has data sovereignty control. So if you build it, you can configure it, but Azure absolutely has that data sovereignty control. To my knowledge, GCS, Copilot, ChatGPT, and AWS, none of theirs have data sovereignty rules. So at least, which is why I almost always recommend Azure, which requires a significant amount of more effort than something pre-built. But Azure's one of the few places you can control your data. Which I don't think anybody actually looks at besides me and probably anybody with security in their title. But are you having AI conversations with your staff at least on appropriate use?
No.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call out your staff. I realize I just called out your entire company.
No, it's fine. I mean, I don't know that the conversation hasn't taken place. I specifically have not had that conversation, I should say.
Well, and I will extend that to, I haven't seen data sovereignty conversations in many of our communities, right? Tech Degenerates, Discord, MSP Geek, MRU, Reddit. I haven't seen those conversations a whole lot. There are few and far between, like Henry Tim speaking up. But I don't see MSPs talking about that. I've seen Sobel talk about it. I've seen, other analysts talk about it. That worries me a little bit. We're in this. Would you agree that we're in this state where security is probably the paramount concern for every MSP at this point?
No.
Okay. Tell me why. Give me a spoonful of advice. I love this when you argue with me. Tell me.
I'm not saying it shouldn't be. Because it absolutely should. I'm saying that based on my experiences and understanding of the MSP world and space, the MSP's concerns aren't generally the same as the market's concerns. Okay. Where, like, for instance, automation. There are MSPs, a large amount of MSPs that don't take advantage of any automation. That have an RMM tool specifically for Screen Connect or Splashtop or TeamViewer or whatever remote control comes with it. That is the only reason they have an RMM.
I will admit that my first maybe years of using a real, because I used like GoToAssist before I got into a real RMM. I think N-Central was my first, and then I moved to LabTech. But I'll be honest, even LabTech, I used it for like a year, where it was just and it wasn't Screen Connect at the time. It was, I forget, the VNC or whatever bullshit. But that was the only use I had for it, for remote control. Forget automation, forget scripting.
Yep. And they hope it patches. They expect it to patch. They expect it to patch. They don't, but they don't. That's why I say that it's not a concern. It's because they assume things are taken care of. They assume things are done. They buy a tool and that's it. That's all I need. I don't need to worry about anything else. And that is why I said no. They don't comprehend like, for me, instance, like I admit now, 100% that I refuse to learn anything about security.
But that's
I can't.
okay.
I
Okay,
can't.
I was going to say that's okay.
Well,
And then,
when I say anything, I mean like specifics, like I normally would.
right.
Like I'm not going to dive into the details of why this
Yes.
log is important to the other one. I can't use that brain power anymore.
I
But
joke about it, but when John Hammond did his video with doing talking about Log4j and he used Minecraft to show it, that was the only video I've ever seen on his channel that I actually understood start to finish. I mean,
yeah,
so
exactly.
yes, I agree with you. There's us that are security aware, and then fortunately or unfortunately, you and I have a lot of friends that are real security people. So yes, I agree with you. I have no interest in going down that path.
But I also know that we need someone who does. So,
100%.
and I leave that to those experts. You know, we have someone dedicated. We have a CISO. Like that's an important thing. But the nitty gritty details of the that I leave to someone. I can't spend the brain power to do that anymore, especially with the rapid changing of everything. But MSPs don't know that it needs to be a security thing or a critical thing that they should be paying attention to constantly. Just like with automation, just like with AI, people don't comprehend this. They buy it, they plug it in, and it's not a light bulb. You have to work to maintain it. It going off and you replacing the bulb is not,
It's funny because you're right. So many MSPs miss that. Oh, I built it. It works. And then who's maintaining it? Because inevitably something, especially if you've built anything around Microsoft or, a few other select vendors, that they kill endpoints all the time. I have one vendor that changes the response on endpoints. So you have to proactively, if you haven't built in really good, error catching and management notification, you will get caught and stuff will break and you'll be caught out. And then I'm sure you've been in this situation. I know I have, where I'll look at a repo that I built a year, 2, 3 years ago, and I'm like, I don't remember. And I'm good at commenting, and there'll still be times I don't remember how this function works or where it plays into everything else.
You have to reverse engineer your own stuff that you've written.
Absolutely. Which sometimes can take the same amount of time it took to write in the first place.
Yeah. Amen to that.
And that's forgetting the whole, oh no, I can do this a little better here. I can do this a little better here. The refactoring conversation. Don't get me started on that. But yeah, I mean, so
it's a sad no.
Yeah, it's like, it's like MFA. It's when I asked Tony on dispatch, when are we going to stop talking about, breaches that could have been, or, incidents that could have been stopped by MFA? And it's always like, I don't know.
Well, yeah.
So with that said, let's end, because we're at the top of the hour. Let's end on a little bit of positive. What are you looking forward to next week?
I'm looking forward to making progress on all the stuff I'm working on. A lot of people put a hard deadline on accomplishing things. Like, I'm working on this, it has to be done. Like, if it's not done, I am now upset at myself. But I am trying to work towards the mindset of, as long as I'm making progress, as long as I'm iterating on where it's at now, then it's great.
I love it. I am looking forward to seeing more sales for MSP GeekCon May 2024. I realize Kyle should be shilling more than I do. It's just I had so much fun.
In my nature, I struggle so much to bring it up.
You're not a self-promoter. I'll do it for you. And for those that don't know, I was in the chat last week on while you guys were, or one of the weeks while you guys were covering, and I'm like, Kyle, make sure you mention GeekCon. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But seriously, very worthwhile conference. We have Rob coming up, Write a Boom coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely looking forward to that. Not looking forward to Vegas, but I am looking forward to Write a Boom. Or wait, where's Write a Boom? It's Vegas, right?
It's Vegas.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm going to Vegas a couple times this year. I'm Vegased out, but yeah, I'm looking forward to Write a Boom, which is a fantastic conference, and we'll both be there. So if you're going to Write a Boom, let us know. Hit us up on either MSP Geek or, because we're both on MSP Geek, obviously, and we're both on the MMN Discord, and we're probably in a million other places together.
Right.
So hit us up on either one, and thanks for hanging out, everybody. We appreciate you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
Bye.
Yeah, this is the time where I have to look for the closing, and I completely forgot where it's
Oh, that's
at.
good. Well, I usually wave, but I can't.
Yeah. Okay, I'll wave with two hands. Ah.